You're listening to the Washington State Real Estate Investing Podcast. This episode is sponsored by Deese Real Estate and Property Management. Deese Real Estate specializes in helping out-of-town and local investors in the Spokane area buy profitable properties while having a little fun along the way, and is probably the best agent and property management company in Spokane. For more information, go to www.deesrealestate.com and follow Deese Real Estate on Instagram and TikTok. If you would like to grow your network, support, and be a sponsor of the Washington State Real Estate Investing Podcast, please reach out to us and find out more information about sponsorship opportunities at wsreip.com. Good day, everyone. I'm your host, Jeff Udick, back with another great episode here on the Washington State Real Estate Investing Podcast. We've got a great conversation for you today, folks. I catch up with Billy Deese, founder of Deese Real Estate and Property Management, and a good friend and sponsor of the podcast. And in full disclosure, Billy is our real estate agent and property manager in Spokane. On today's episode, Billy and I catch up on what's been happening in the Spokane real estate market and how social media is impacting his business in small and large ways. That reminds me, you can follow us on TikTok at WSREIP and get some short clips and behind the scenes footage of the podcast as well. Before we get into this week's show, just a reminder, there is still time to sign up for the first ever Coeur d'Alene Real Estate Investing Summit happening October 21st, 22nd. Kelly Clark, one of the founders of the summit, was on the August 24th show. You can go back and listen to that great episode. Kelly was gracious enough to give our podcast listeners a $50 discount to the summit this year. All you need to do when you register for the summit is to use the code Kelly50. That's Kelly 50. Again, Kelly 50. Use that code when you register and you save yourself $50. Registration is open now, and you are not going to want to miss this chance to hear and learn from some of the biggest names in real estate, both here in the Pacific Northwest and nationally as well. Here are some of the things you can learn at the summit. We'll be talking about doing due diligence as a real estate deal, raising capital for your projects, protect your income with property tax structures, subject to existing loan investing, legal wholesaling, marketing, finding deals, short-term rentals, and flipping, just to name a few. Head over to CDA REI Summit.com to register and learn more about this great networking and learning opportunity here in the Pacific Northwest. Again, that's CDA for Coeur d'Alene, REI for Real Estate Investing, Summit.com, CDA REI Summit.com. You can register over there, and again, use that code Kelly50 to save yourself $50. All right, I'm excited to share this conversation with you as Billy and I chat about the Spokane market, where things are headed. We even talk about one of our properties we have and how social media is impacting the world of real estate. I hope you enjoyed this. And with that, on the show. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Washington State Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm here with my good friend, Billy Deese, who, full disclosure, is our real estate agent in the Spokane area, also our property manager in the Spokane area. Billy was also our guest on episode number 1, where we tried to be in person with some guy revving his motorcycle out the door. So I thought as we come around about a year into the podcast or so, it'd be good to get Billy back on and get an update on the Spokane market. But before we get into that, Billy, I have to say, congratulations. You were just named one of the top real estate agents in the Spokane Coeur d'Alene area. Congrats on that, man.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about what the last year's been and being named one of the top real estate agents in the area.
Yeah, so, the last year has just it's been great. There's a lot of changes in the market that we've seen, but, we launched the brokerage. Next week will be exactly 1 year. And so it's been kind of a whirlwind and a lot of learning. There really is no manual for starting a brokerage. You can talk to other people who started brokerages, but in all honesty, most of them started a while back when things were different. The market was different. When inflation wasn't so high and things didn't cost as much and you didn't have to pay people as much to, for the admins and all that sort of stuff. So, we've learned a lot, and then we started the property management stuff in January of this year. And so, that was just a whole other learning experience in and of itself there too, and still learning because of, the whole COVID restrictions and all of that sort of stuff that
Yeah.
even, in all honesty, most of the attorneys are still learning, so it's just, we're kind of all in this weird place. But, being named one of the top agents was, it was really cool, a little humbling too, just because it's like,
Yeah.
you're out here all the time just trying to do what's best for your business and for your clients. And it's one of the things, I always tell all of our agents too, is that, it's like, when you do the right things for the right reasons, the success or the money or whatever it is that you want will come. And so, it's kind of like, back when, like, I used to play sports in high school, like I never kept track of, like, during a basketball game, at the end of the game, there was always those guys who were like, I had 13 points, I had 4 assists, and I had, and like, I never kept track of during it because I was just too focused on playing and trying to win. And I kind of find myself
Yeah.
doing that sometimes with real estate now. Like, it was kind of a surprise. Like, I felt like I'd had a good year, but not like that kind of a good year, because I hadn't really been, I don't like compare myself to other agents or see where other agents, are falling as far as their volume or, that kind of thing. So yeah, it was kind of cool. It was actually, like I said, it was kind of a surprise to be on there, but it was good. And, thankful to everyone who helped get there. It's not just like one thing. There's, all the clients, there's all the people in the background, all the admin people, all the other agents who have helped when I was too busy sometimes, and they would help me out with, with things. So, but yeah, it was kind of cool.
Yeah. And how big is your brokerage now? How many agents do you have?
Yeah. So, we have a total of 13 agents and then 3 admin people.
And 3 admin. Wow. That's great. Good for you, Billy. Good for you, Billy.
Well, thanks, man.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Spokane market. You seem to have your finger on the pulse over there and everything that you do. Interest rates are up. We're hearing about a slowdown in the housing market. And I will say, the last time, my wife and I were over there working on a rehab project, my wife kept telling me, she said, somebody's not getting the memo that we're headed into a recession, because the lines are out the door at Home Depot and Lowe's and, all the places. Like, you couldn't tell, especially in Spokane. And I'm not saying it's the same everywhere, but it just didn't seem like there was a whole lot of slowdown. What are you seeing in the housing market? Are we seeing a slowdown yet? Are we getting back to, quote unquote, like, we can breathe when there's not 15 offers on a single house? What are you seeing?
Yeah. So what we're really seeing is prices are pretty well holding steady and remaining the same. What we're not seeing is a lot of competition. So it's a great time for buyers now, especially all those buyers that were competing with 10, 15 offers on everything that came on the market. We're just not seeing that. Houses are sitting on the market for a little while, and by a little while, 30 days, which seems like an eternity now
from just a year ago.
When, you were under contract in a day or two, and 30 days on the market still is really not that long, in a balanced market. So I feel like that's what we're seeing. Prices are, really remaining the same. And I was actually just having this conversation with a client last night who is looking to try to refinance. And so, we are seeing like price reductions and stuff like that. But even just a couple of months ago, you would say, hey, the house down the street from you, the comparable house to yours, or the couple of comps, they just sold for $350. So let's go to market with yours at $365, $375. And you could pretty well expect to get, some really good traction at that price. And there were some agents and probably some sellers, just to be honest, who were still kind of in that mindset and kind of tried to do that, where now it's like, hey, the house down the street from you just sold last month for $350. We should probably go to market at $350. So, it's, you're not seeing the prices just jump so fast, but they're holding, we're not seeing it. And the price drops that I'm seeing, I feel like, are just those people who got kind of like bit in that transition period. or who just
Sure.
weren't quite paying enough attention, or, maybe it was a newer agent or a part-time agent or something like that, that just, isn't quite in there, and was kind of working off of old information.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, like I said, that's what we're seeing. Not as much competition. We're getting agents now that are like, hey, you showed the house. Will you please send me an offer? And, it's because people have gotten trained, over the past year or two.
Yeah.
But interest rates have definitely had that impact, and, it's had an impact on people looking to try to refinance. That same client, God bless her, her lender was like, talked her out of refinancing back several months ago when rates were like at like 4.25. She was like, I think interest rates are going to go down, so I think you should wait. And so she did, and now interest rates are like 6, and it's completely changed everything for her. And so,
right.
But again, that's kind of that thing too, where when you try to time markets, interest rates, housing markets, like those people who I remember talking to 6 years ago, they're like, I'm waiting on the crash, and it's like,
right.
It hasn't happened. And I don't know, even now, just as accelerated as prices got, even if there was a crash, quote unquote, I just don't think we're going to see prices get back to where they were at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, especially I think in the Spokane market, it's still economy wise, I think it's still growing. There's still a ton of people moving there. Overall, I would say if you look across the state of Washington, it's still a very appealing place to live. And relative to other places you can move, and I'll use Seattle as the example, or the greater Seattle area over here, you can still buy a great house for a reasonable price in my west side of the state mindset.
Right.
So I think there's a lot about. How about on the investor side? Are you seeing any slowdown from investors? I know, you have been sponsoring the podcast since we got started, which I really appreciate. And I know you've had investors reach out to you because of the sponsorship on the podcast. Are you still seeing out-of-state sponsors come in, or the investment side of things? Is it slowing down at all, or what are you kind of seeing in the investment space?
I haven't seen really any major slowdown in the investment space. It's just one of those things where it's like, rents are still going up. We still, and, I say this relatively, I maybe even said it the last time we talked, that the fact of the matter is there's still just not enough places for the people to live. And we're seeing that in the rental space too, so, and it is a good place to invest. Like you said, there's several different companies. Amazon has built now 2 distribution centers here in the Spokane area. And so, tons of other businesses that are bringing jobs in, and relatively good paying jobs. And we have a lot in Spokane that I feel like people are looking for, and especially after the pandemic, in that we have the conveniences of a large city. So we have the infrastructure, we have the traffic isn't super terrible. It's getting worse, but it's not terrible. But we if you want to go shopping, we have a couple malls. They're nothing like super crazy, but if you're in the market for a Louis Vuitton bag, you're probably not going to find it in Spokane yet. But we have some of the amenities that the larger cities have, but within a 30-minute drive, still in just about any direction, you would feel like you're, just miles away from civilization, and just so many places to, so many lakes and so many hiking trails, and just so much to do just outside the city, and in some cases even within the city. And so I think just all of that kind of attracts a lot of people, and we are, relatively safe as far as like, even with the crime and stuff like that, man. I mean, compared to other cities our size, most all of our crime is property crime, which still sucks when your car gets broken into, or when, something like that happens, but it's not violent crime. And, so I think we have that kind of going for us as well. So there's just so much going on. And again, too, just like, we get some snow, but we're not worrying about hurricanes and tornadoes and
Yeah.
like all of the other things
Yeah.
too, earthquake, we get a little rumble here and there, but nothing, so I think that there's
Yeah.
just so many things that attract so many different types of people and so many different types of investors even. Um,
Right.
and kind of to your point, relatively speaking, our multifamilies and rental properties are still relatively cheap compared to a lot of
Yeah.
the like metro areas and stuff like that too. So it's just I've got a couple clients right now that are looking for multifamilies that one guy is looking to try to house hack. Um, some other guys are looking for more like a fixer upper that they can go in and kind of redo and then get the rents higher. And so it's never a bad time to invest in real estate. It's just sometimes you have to kind of adjust your strategy. Like if you
Yes.
used to be, hey, I need brand new turnkey. Maybe now you start to look for those fixer uppers, or
Yeah.
but then you're compete. If your thing was fixer uppers, then now you're competing with more fixer uppers. So let's find a different strategy, or seller financing. A lot of people, especially in the Spokane area, have owned some of these multifamilies for years, and they've been paid off for years, so they can offer seller financing. But there's so many
Right.
agents who don't understand how seller financing works, um, and so you have to be prepared to have those conversations too, because human beings' natural reaction when they don't understand something is fear, and when someone is scared,
Right.
their natural reaction is to say no. So being able to just kind of adjust with that, with the way things are heading. But there's always a deal and always a way to make it work.
And I think part of it, I mean, for me, I have come to kind of understand that for us anyway, our real estate investing kind of goes through stages. We end up in we'll end up in a buy
Uh-huh.
stage. And in the buy stage, we're looking for properties. We've got you out, beating the weeds and trying to find us off market deals or the deal that fits what we're looking for. And then we go into this rehab stage, kind of where we're rehabbing and we're trying to get in there. And then you're trying to get to this stage of calm,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be, the idea of passive
Right.
income. And it's been interesting as we kind of transitioned into, and I would say through the pandemic, the majority of the pandemic, we were kind of in that passive income stage.
Yeah.
The things were happening. We weren't rehabbing a lot of properties at that time. And then coming out of the pandemic, we had to make a choice. Are we going to go back into buy stage, or are we going to go back into rehab stage? And based on the market, based on what we were looking for, we're constantly looking for a fixer upper. We're looking for something that's got some value add in it. We decided that the best place to put our money was to rehab the properties we have. And so that's where we've been focused. And everybody that's been listening to the podcast hears me go on and on about 5 rehabs in one summer. And now we've taken on too many rehabs. We don't know what we're going to do, but, thanks to you and your team, we're renting them pretty quickly, and we're renting them for higher than we thought we were going to. I remember we were sitting in your office not that long ago, and I said, Billy, if you can get $1,800 a month for this property, you'll be my best friend. And I think we ended up getting $2,000 or $2,100 for that property when it was finished. And so I think there's a lot to be said for Spokane. The other thing, and I wonder if you're noticing this outside of our properties, but it seems like our renter pool is getting better. Like we can be a little more selective. And I'm even noticed this in other listings in Spokane, where in the listing it says, if you don't have a credit score above 680, don't bother applying, or you need to have income that is at least 3 times the rent. And so because, to your point, there's so many more, people are still moving there. There's still not enough houses. As a homeowner, I then can play that market, and I can now get a more financially stable client into my investment property. Are you seeing that kind of across the board?
Yeah. And that's, that's exactly it, is you are able to be a little more picky. You are able to, make sure. I mean, I remember a time years ago when I was working with another company doing property management. And I mean, there were times where we were like, we'll give you free first month's rent. Like we were basically buying tenants, and those days are gone. And I really don't think that we're gonna in any sort of short term see that again in Spokane, just because And the city did just pass new zoning laws where basically, if there's a livable structure on it now, you can make it a multifamily. That's
Wow.
that's a little oversimplification, but not by much.
But it's pretty close. I know.
And so I think that's going to incentivize some people. But I was just going through this on another property. You would think that they would also be more lenient on existing structures that were already multifamily and allowing you to skip some of the red tape type situations to be able to create more housing on existing structures. And they kind of missed that part.
Okay.
So, because back in the seemingly the 70s ish, a lot of big houses were converted to multifamilies, especially like South Hill area.
Brown's Addition.
Yeah, exactly. And so West Central, that whole part of town where there were a lot of large homes, and they were converted to multifamily. Some of them legally, some of them a little more illegally.
Right.
But like the one that, for instance, now it's gutted, and because they gutted the whole thing, now in order to put it back together, whoever owns it, whether it's the current owner or a new buyer, is going to have to get a site plan by an architect, and they're going to have to, do all of this stuff. That's, in my opinion, just a bit much. If you're a licensed bonded contractor and you pull a permit, the building inspector ought to be able to come in and say, you did that correctly, or you didn't do that correctly. The structure is there, so all we're doing is redoing the interior of the structure, and it should be easier.
Right.
But hey, at least we're making some strides, towards it. But at the same time, you just kind of wonder how many people are going to hack together, kind of like that 70s thing too, where, people are just going to hack together some multifamilies. But it's a step in the right direction to try to kind of alleviate some of that pain. But I don't think,
go ahead.
I don't think that anything's going to be able to happen quickly enough to solve the issue in any sort of near term.
Yeah. Now, so if we talk about that for just a second, because this is a big rule change inside the city of Spokane, and it's only the city of Spokane. It's not the Valley or North, right? It's just the city
of Spokane as of now.
So as you know, we have two, and we can talk about my properties. I don't mind talking about that on the podcast. We've got two different duplexes that have unfinished basements. And you and I, and my wife, who runs the whole thing, have had conversations about the ability to maybe wall it off and put units in those basements. So because they're duplexes, would we be able to do that? Or is this more like single family can do that? Or it's built duplex, we could wall that off. There's already an exterior access to the basement and make those units. So our duplex just became a fourplex.
Yeah. Especially the one that, the one that you guys didn't finish the basement yet. It's probably a good thing that you didn't, because you are spending the same money essentially.
Right.
I mean, you're going to have to add in a kitchen, which is going to be additional expense, but everything's already there. So as far as the plumbing exists, you can just tap into and if you just put the kitchen over the kitchen, most everything's already in place. And so it's not going to be that much more. And finishing that, like the one that we're talking about right now, finishing that as a 4-bedroom, 2-bath unit is not going to double the rent, but finishing it out as 2-1 on both is going to double the rent.
The rent. Yeah, that's so true.
So I think.
I mean, our problem with that one is we've already been talking, and the biggest issue is, where do we put another hot water heater?
Oh, tankless, man.
Yeah. Well, that's what you start thinking through this stuff, and back to your point, if you're waiting for the crash, it's not going to happen. So you have to think differently. And so all of a sudden we're thinking, well, is this the time when we actually upgrade to a heat pump? Because that gets the unit outside, and now that frees up where the furnace was. We move to a heat pump system. And then do you go to tankless hot water heaters, and much smaller unit takes up less space because all that stuff is in the basement, and you're going to need two of everything now. If you turn that into a fourplex. So we're already thinking through some of that stuff. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, we're done renovating for a while, mostly because we're out of money.
It happens.
Like scraping by. Yeah, I know. But again, right, it's stages. Right. And then we'll go into the stage of, hopefully, a stage of pretty calm. We'll have 17 of our 18 units all fully rehabbed. And so hopefully we'll get into that stage of calmness for a while. The bank account can build itself back up. And then we'll be ready to dive back in when we're ready to go into the next stage. But for me, anyways, it helps just think of like, okay, what stage are we in, or what stage do I want to go in now? Yeah. Looking at the market, looking where things are, where are we with our rental portfolio, and what do I want to do?
Yeah.
So,
and I like that.
That's just kind of the way I look at it.
I like that perspective too, because it's true. And especially like when you have a lot of doors, like you guys, like you said, you kind of went through a buying phase and accumulated a lot of doors, and we got you guys some good deals. Some of them were way better than others, but that's kind of part of it too, right? Yep. But then, the rehab phase of it, and that's crazy that 17 of the 18 have all been rehab now. Like,
yeah, I know. Well, as of mid-September, we got this last one we got to do. The 2-bed one before we got that one to do, and then there's just one more unit that isn't rehabbed, which is great for both of us, right? I mean, our turnaround, I think we just turned around one of our units in a fourplex. I think it was vacant for like a week, and we had a new renter in there. Yeah, so that
at a lot higher rent too.
And a lot higher rent. I mean, that unit, Denise and I were running the numbers on that specific. It's a unit in a fourplex, and we bought it in 2017. And so whatever that's been 5 years, we've almost, not quite, doubled the rent that we're getting on that unit. Wow. We rehabbed it right when we bought it. So it's already been rehabbed, but over the years, it's just unbelievable to think.
Right.
So,
and
Spokane is still a good
I almost think of it like as, once you get all of those done too, you just kind of go into that, like you said, the passive income part, but there's like the maintenance phase, but with as newly renovated as almost everything is now, for you guys, like but there's inevitably always going to be that leaky faucet for that, but you guys won't have to really be dealing with much of any of that. So you can just kind of sit back and wait for it to be easy again.
That's why you hire a property manager.
Exactly.
To take care of leaky faucets. Yeah.
Right. So you're not getting the phone call.
Billy, that's your job, man. You're the maintenance phase. I like that. You're right, though. There is this phase of just keeping your real estate nice,
protecting the investment, so to speak. For sure.
Protecting the investment. Yeah. I do like that, but awesome. Well, Billy, thank you so much for taking time. I know you're a busy man, being one of the top real estate agents in Spokane. Congrats again on that, my friend. It's so great, and it's been so great just to watch your growth over this past year. I mean, just to see how many people you've hired, and you moved into a new space that you didn't even have an office space a year ago. It's just amazing to see what you've done. So,
thanks, man.
Congratulations on that. Before we go, I did want to ask you, how is the TikTok? If you don't know this, and we'll make sure it's in the show notes, Billy does amazing TikToks. I think you must have been a performer in another life or something, but are you seeing anything come from that in Instagram or any of your social media stuff? Cause you're pretty big on the social.
Man. So, it was one of those things where it's like, hey, and I've kind of always tried to do this, man. Like when I first started, it was one of those things where it's like I tried to leverage Facebook as much as I could because it was cheap, free, and it's a way for almost everyone's on it, so just kind of trying to like stay ahead with that and kind of keep up with what's going on with social media stuff, And so TikTok was kind of one of those things where it was just like, at first it kind of seemed like it was just kind of a children's thing or whatever, and kind of let it go through that phase. And then, inevitably, just like Facebook and just like Instagram and even Twitter to a certain, like all of those kind of started out almost like as small kind of like gimmicky feeling type things, and then kind of grew into something. And so, not a ton of agents were leveraging TikTok. And I was just like, I think this is where we need to be in doing these. But also it's kind of that thing too, where you get to have a little more fun. You get to be a little bit more yourself. Really, because the demographic there is, that's what they're expecting. Like there's
Right.
things that we will put on TikTok that I would not dare ever put on Facebook, mainly because I don't want my aunt to see me saying those
Right.
things or
And
doing.
being
Yeah,
that way.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, it's just a good space to be able to do that. And, I get a lot, and go to networking events or go to places and people are like, oh man, love your TikTok, that kind of thing. And it's kind of like with the Facebook stuff and everything too. Not so many people always interact with it online like you would like for them
Yeah.
to. But then when you see them in real
Yeah.
life, and one good thing that actually did come from it, I was following this guy on TikTok. I went on to this networking thing a couple weeks ago, and I was following him, and I guess he had started following me. I honestly didn't even know he was a local lender. I just kind of liked his content, and I was like, "Hey, cool,
Yeah.
man." And
Yeah.
so I'm walking on, and he's like, "Hey, Billy, I love the TikToks," and I was like, "Oh, Tony, yeah, all right, love yours too, man." I was like,
Oh,
"I'm just
wow.
trying to be Tony," like kind of. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
later on, we called up, and he was like, "Yeah, we should do something together." And I was like, "Yeah, dude, that would be super cool. Let's do it." And so then we met for lunch. A couple weeks later, he was like heading out on vacation or whatever, and kind of put a plan together of what we can do to try to help each other out too, because it's nice. It's going to be nice to have like a lender realtor type videos
Yeah.
from time to time
Connection.
too. But
Yeah.
over the lunch conversation and stuff like that, I was like, this guy actually seems, pretty cool. Seems like he knows what he's doing. And for instance, that client that I was talking to that was having trouble refinancing, I was just
Yeah.
like, hey, give Tony a call and see, because she had talked to another lender that I had sent her to. She talked to her original lender, and just no one was able to help her out. And I was like, well, here's someone else. Like he seems like he kind of gets things done, so give him a shot. And she did, and they're still kind of working through some stuff. But funny enough is that he was the lender that she used when she bought her first house 6 or 7 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And
Oh, wow.
and she was like, the thing I really liked about him was when I was trying to buy my house years ago, he was like, yeah, what you want, like for what you want right now, you can't do it. But here's your homework.
Yeah.
Here's a list of things that you need to do. And when you get these things done, let me know and we'll get you what you want. And so she said it took about 9 months. And every time she would, knock something off the list, she'd just send him an email and, send him the proof of whatever it was. And 9 months later, she got exactly what she wanted. And she was like, that's all I need.
Oh, wow,
I
cool.
don't. And I was like, yeah, none of us, like when we're trying to do something, none of us like a just no, like we want a no,
Right.
but, like you,
Right.
but
Yeah.
if you do these things. And so that's been like a really good contact that's come from TikTok.
There you
And
go.
from the social media stuff. And, I hear people, kind of talking, and like one thing that I'm hoping that we can kind of leverage, especially like with the TikTok thing too, is outside referrals from, Philadelphia or, that kind of thing, especially being an independent brokerage where, and people like,
Right.
at least there's that exposure and people have seen who we are and how we operate. And if they're on TikTok, kind of the same thing, chances are we're kind of
Yeah.
dealing with the same types of clients and stuff like that. So,
Well, and I think it's a smart move. Like we start looking and we can break this down, and my other life is knowing this technology stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. But you start looking at, I mean, TikTok is now the number one website on the internet. Like it beats Google, it beats YouTube, it's jumped to number one.
Yeah.
So for no other reason, if you were in a place, and we'll take a real estate agent. If you were a real estate agent and you need to connect with a community, you need to be where that community is. It's no longer Facebook. You can spend a lot of time on Facebook. The other thing to know is the demographic that are in these spaces. So if you want to reach a demographic that is 50 years old and older, maybe you have a 55 plus community. Now you need to be on Facebook. The demographics of Facebook are for those 50 and older, and know that. But if you're looking for first time home buyers, if you're looking for people who are just moving to, I love this point of moving to your area, what they might be looking for, the algorithms in TikTok are insane. And that is where your 20 and 30 somethings are hanging out. And so as an agent, you need to be able to go where your buyers are. And you never know which TikTok is going to take off or who's going to see what and where that circles back to you. I mean, it's the same reason why we've started a TikTok account for the podcast as well. We know there's real estate people out there. There's investors out there. And so you've got to be able to use the technology, but also understand, okay, which demographic is this? You on Instagram right now? Instagram, you're either aiming at middle school and high school kids, which you probably don't want as a real estate agent. They're not ready to buy homes yet. Or you're actually aiming to like 30 and early 40s. There are like the two demographics that are on Instagram, which is a great place for you to be as a real estate agent. So you have to kind of know the background of these. It's the same thing with me. I swore off TikTok until I'm looking at the data coming in and I'm like, oh, crap, I can't, I have to move that way. And I'm the guy that has every account everywhere since Twitter, you know, I'm like in the 100,000s of joining Twitter.
Oh, dang. Yeah.
So you have to just know that as a real estate agent and know the content. And I love even when you said, you know, I make content for TikTok that I won't make for Facebook. As you shouldn't. There's are two different demographics, and this demographic is going to think you're hilarious and you're awesome, and that demographic is going to look at you like, "What's this weird guy doing on my Facebook?"
I would never trust this guy with my largest investment.
Exactly. So just know that, you know, as real estate agents, know the different platforms, know the different ways that they work, and what you can cross over and what you can't cross over. But more importantly, I think, is understand the demographics, and you can do your own research on that, but understand the demographics that are on different platforms, and knowing that demographic helps you then to tell your story or curate the message that you need to create for the demographic.
For sure. And, you know, actually, that was one of the things too. One of our admin that we hired, she's a young girl. I'm like 18. We hired her, one, you know, she's for a lot of other reasons, but one, because she was young, and she's the one, honestly, that does the TikToks, like,
all the stuff.
You know, like, I mean, I participate for sure, but like, I literally walk into the office and I'm like, okay, which ones are we doing this morning? She's like, she's like, Billy, I got one for you. Check this out. And she's like, what do you want it to say? You know, I mean, I have input on it, but you know, like, I mean, it is important, and it is something that I feel like needs to be done, and something that we need to be in. And, you know, I feel like as far as like agents in Spokane, I'm not going to say we're the only ones. I'm not going to say that we're the ones that are even posting the most, but I know that there's not a lot.
Right.
And if we can kind of build that audience around ourselves first, I feel like that's going to be really helpful. But I also just don't have the time to get on TikTok and look through and see what the trending stuff is, and see what, you know, the trending sounds and the trending, you know, videos and the, you know, the new trends, which is a completely different thing than trending. And, you know, but she does, and she gets all that, and she, you know, then that's,
and she loves it. And this is her wheelhouse. She loves doing it.
She loves to see me make an ass.
Let's hire the right people in the right positions.
I think sometimes she's just like, I just want to see if Billy will even do this. You know, so, but it is fun, you know, and it kind of, you know, in a weird way, kind of added a bit more fun back to the job for me to be able to do that, you know. So it is something I actually enjoy doing them, and you know, I don't wake up and just like, oh, I got to shoot more TikToks today. You know, I'm like, heck yeah, you know, like because it is fun. But yeah, no, it's I think that social media is very important. I feel like it's something that's super underutilized by most small businesses, especially, but you know, real estate agents and realtors that, you know, in a lot of ways, a lot of realtors and real estate agents are a little archaic, you know, as far as like, there's still kind of old ideas that are being held on to that, you know, you can fight the change, or you can adjust to the change. Either way, the change is happening. So you can waste your energy fighting it, or, you know, try to figure out a way to make it work for you. So,
how do you adapt?
Yeah,
how do you adapt?
For sure.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for that. That was a good one. I just, you know, I wanted to know how those were going, and we'll make sure you will have access to, we'll all put our TikTok in there. We'll make sure Billy's TikTok's in there, so you can follow Billy and see some of the cool content he's doing, and our Instagrams and everything else.
Well,
and over to the website. Make sure all of that is in the show notes as well. So thank you, Billy, for spending some time. Appreciate it. We're headed back over to Spokane in a couple weeks, so I'll see you in person. Maybe we'll have to catch up.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
yeah, man.
Thanks, bud.
Have a good one.